myself in the screen, doesn't it? Golly. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper. My name is Lee. So happy that you're here. And Diana, too, and Tracy McInfuss. Gosh, great to see you, too. I don't know how many people are on here. I think right now just the two of you. But wow, things are getting exciting, aren't they? We've got Tu-95s. I forget the number. Probably about 16 of them, I believe. Tu-95 is the long-range, propeller-driven bomber of the Russians. Hello, Cats and Prepping and Butch Graves. Welcome. But I think there's 16 of them. Let's not get caught up in numbers. Some in the Baltic, some in the Black Sea. And there are some people who are reporting. I have not received any confirmation of this from any credible source. I was just on New York Preppers Live, and a couple of his people from hello, Rogue Gypsy. Hello, Triple G Farms. Butch Graves. Wow, all the great people are here. But anyhow, it's just on New York Preppers website, and he's got some viewers who are on his live from Ukraine. And evidently all of their air raid warnings are going off. Evidently these Tu-95s, Bear bombers, are launching X-101 air-to-surface missiles. So it looks like the big bombardment by the Russian Air Force against that country is now in progress, and this is probably retaliation for the attacks on the Kerch Bridge. So, we don't know. We're just going to have to find out. We'll have to watch and see what happens. In the fog of everything that goes on, you don't really know the truth for a day or two after it happens. And even then, given the lack of dependency we have of our media and their reporting capabilities, they don't always tell us the truth. So trying to find the truth sometimes takes a little bit longer. Mitch J, welcome. Lisa B, welcome. Little Lone Prepper, howdy. So happy to see you all. So let me kind of preface this with first, I want to share with you an exciting story. Today is August 14th, and August 14th is the patron day of Maximilian Kolbe, Saint Maximilian's Kolbe. So Saint Maximilian Kolbe was a Polish priest. At that time, it was actually that part of Poland was actually owned by or occupied by the Soviets. He was born. His name when he was born was Ronald. But anyhow, Raymond. I'm sorry. So when he was born, his mother said he was a troublesome child. One night she said, "What are you going to do with your life?" And so one night he went to sleep. He told his mother the next morning that he had an apparition and that the Virgin Mary had visited him in his sleep and had offered him one of two crowns. Hello, Texas Redleg. She had offered him a red crown, which meant that he could die a martyr, or he could wear a white crown, which meant that he would become a saint. And he said, well, I'm a young, impetuous youth. I want both. So he was one of the first ones that was put into Auschwitz during World War II. And so somewhere around the first part of August 1941, somebody escaped from Auschwitz. And it just so happened it was from his cell block. And so what happened was the Nazis would then take that entire cell block, stand them outside without food, at attention for anywhere up to 48 hours, a light meal, a little bit of water, basically pure torture. Then at the end of that 48 hours, they would select 10 of them that they would pull out and execute as retaliation for the one who got away. So as the camp commander pulled out the 10 he was going to execute, one of them was a sergeant, Sergeant Francis, and I forget his last name, but he was a very good friend of Saint Maximilian Kolbe's. And so he was selected to die. And when he was selected, Maximilian Kolbe became extremely arrogant and basically left the formation, walked up in front of the camp commander and demanded that the camp commander allow him to die. He said, "Look, I'm a Roman Catholic priest, and I'm an old man, and I'm frail, and I don't have much left to live for. And what you're doing is you're about ready to execute a father of 3 and a husband for something he had no responsibility for. If someone must die, let me die in his place." And so most people figured that what would have happened, knowing this camp commander, he would have said, "Okay, you can die with him," but instead he allowed him to die in place of him. And so the sergeant lived throughout Auschwitz, throughout the war, and he shared the story of what some of the capos found, and that was when they went in. So basically, they had this one room, and the execution was they put all these 10 people in this one room and starved them. So most people died after 3 to 5 days because they were already that emaciated. St. Maximilian Kolbe lasted for 2 weeks. And whereas everybody else, the other 9 people who died in that group, died laying down with their arms stretched out and everything else, St. Maximilian Kolbe was still alive. So they executed him with a pistol shot to the back of the head. And but when they did that, his body was permanently enshrined on his knees in prayer. So they said that really radically changed things, and people started to have hope because of what Father Maximilian Kolbe did. So that's what got him beatified. But the idea of giving oneself for somebody else just because of pure love is basically what beatified him. So I celebrate today, August 14th, as the patron, as St. Maximilian Kolbe, the patron saint. And so let's see who else. Texas Redleg, hi, welcome. Good to see you. Sandy Aaron, good to see you too. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the subject tonight. And that is, one of the things that I've been thinking about is, if I offer food to my neighbors, and then what's to keep them from just shooting me while I'm feeding them food and coming into my house and stealing what I have? Why would they want to keep me alive? What do I have to offer that would guarantee that I, as an individual, am worth more than my possessions? Because possessions are going to become extremely important, and people are going to do nasty things. During terrible times, people do terrible things. And people are going to do nasty things to get at the possessions that others have. People you think you can trust now will turn against you in a heartbeat. And so you're going to have to be suspicious, cautious of everyone in a post-apocalyptic world. So how do you prove your worth to other people? And so I've been thinking about that quite a bit. And so I guess number one has to be the number one thing people are going to be most concerned about, and they're going to give the most amount of leeway to as far as being allowed to do things, is probably going to be somebody with medical experience. So if you have medical knowledge or whatever, you're probably going to be one of the people they want to keep alive, because they realize that by keeping you alive, you keep them alive. So let's go into a joke as just a little bit of a sidebar here. And this is kind of a parable in a sense that's going to carry this discussion a little bit further. There were 2 traveling salesmen, and they were driving through the country, and their car ran out of gas. And so they noticed that there was a farmhouse across this field, and the field had a sign on it. It says, "Warning, aggressive bull." And so this one traveling salesman went back to get his suitcase, and he opened his suitcase. He started changing from his dress shoes to some running shoes. And so they crossed over the fence, and all of a sudden the bull saw him and started snorting. And the other salesman says, "Man, I don't know why you changed into those running shoes, because you can't possibly outrun that bull." And so the salesperson who's wearing the running shoes looks at the other guy and says, "I don't have to outrun the bull. I only have to outrun you." So that's kind of the story we're going to have about the importance of medical training in a post-apocalyptic world. You may not be a physician. You may not be a registered nurse. But if you have advanced first aid skills, if you've taken things like Stop the Bleed or you know how to set or to splint a broken bone, or if you have some antibiotics and know how to use them, if you know how to treat certain things and keep people alive, you will have extreme value. So the moral of this story is get any and all first aid and medical training you can now to prove your value and worth to other people in a post-apocalyptic world. Hello, John H., Muskoka Oma, Sandy Aaron, ABC Patriot, Bob Jones, and that's and KP Heathen. Wow, welcome. So here's the question, and I think that Bob Jones brings out a very important point. They'll keep you alive for your skills, but it's basically slavery. Well, so you're alive. I hate to say it, but you're alive. And they probably, I have when we go to Silver Sneakers to our physical exercise class, one of the women there, her husband doesn't come with him, and he's retired Air Force. And we said, well, why don't we all go out to dinner together? She says, my husband won't eat at any restaurants. And we said, well, okay. How can we kind of all get together? She says, well, he won't eat in restaurants because he heard once that some of the cooks spit on the food. Think of that for a minute. If somebody is keeping you alive, even as a slave, to keep them alive with your medical skills, they have to treat you nice because retribution can be Hades. If you are going to keep them alive, you can keep them alive, but barely, and make them pay and give retribution for everything they've done to you if they're counting on you to keep them alive. So if I'm counting on somebody to keep me alive, I am not going to treat them like a slave. I am going to treat them fairly well. I'm going to give them basically whatever they want. Sandy Aaron, great. So make sure you have the equipment. Make sure you have something that identifies you so that you can identify that with other people around you in an SHTF environment. Yes, it is. It's extremely important that you let them know. Because there's a lot of times in what we have seen in Argentina, what we have seen in the Balkan War, what we've seen in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other places like that, there's a shoot first, ask questions later mentality that happens in an SHTF environment. And so it's better for people know you before so you don't have to wait for them to ask because they may not ask. So now you let them know. When I went to basic Russian at Monterey, California, one of the things that we were taught was "Не стреляйте, я сдаюсь. Я хочу в офицерском клубе работать. Я знаю много военных секретов. So don't shoot. I surrender. I want to work in your officers club because I know a whole bunch of military secrets." So that was one of the first phrases they taught us, So kind of that's what you want to do is you want to announce your specialty. You want to announce your value to the group. You want to let them know, hey, I am capable of doing this for you. So Happy Hickman, welcome. And yeah, and a nurse is going to be extremely valuable in a post-apocalyptic world. So, and that's a good question. So I think that's a question we have to ask each other and ask around. If there's a, quote, Red Dawn scenario, which I don't think is going to ever happen, and that's from 21 years experience, actually 19 years experience as a Russian intelligence analyst, and then 2 years as an Indonesian intelligence analyst. But I would tell you, you're going to need Russian translators. Most of them can't speak English, and I can speak Russian. So that's one. Number two, I do have advanced life-saving skills. I was a member of CERT. I was part of the paramedic team for CERT. Drove ambulances for quite a while. This was before EMT and all that came out. I was actually advanced first aid Red Cross. That's how old I am. Then another one is baking skills. Most people don't know how to bake bread, don't know how to do things like that. So you can probably learn, but you're not going to have anything for a while. So, I'm going to set myself up as a baker. Another one is radio communications. Do you know radio communications? People People don't know about the radio frequencies. Do you know what the 30-meter band is, and how to acquire a signal for that? Do you know the difference between an upper or a lower sideband? Do you know the difference between single sideband and continuous wave, or continuous wave, or do you know the difference between amplitude modulation and frequency modulation, or the polarity of an antenna? All those things become extremely important if you want to communicate with another person. There's a lot more to communications than a UV5R or a YE6 Yaesu. So, knowing those things can be important. So setting yourself up as a communications expert could be another one. But I'm more interested in asking you that question. So what do you think would cause you to be of great value in a post-apocalyptic world? Hi, Red Scout. I don't understand your premise of your question. We can talk about 11 different commandments. Of course, there's the first 10 that were given to us in Exodus, and they're also expressed again in Numbers. We can also talk about the 11th commandment that was given to us by Jesus. So we can talk about those commands. We can talk about the 365 laws that suffer the death penalty there throughout the entirety of the Old Testament. So I don't understand your question about what are God's commands. We can say, of course, Matthew 24 that says that we have to take care of Jesus's sheep, his flock. And then Peter asked him, well, when was this? And he says, when you've taken care of the least of my people, you've taken care of me. And when did you feed the poor, take care of an orphan, visit a prison? That's when you have taken care of me. Of course, there's also James 2, verses 12 through 24. This says, "O vain man, dost thou not know that faith without works is dead, being alone? What doth it profit, my brother, if a man come to you naked, destitute, in need of food and clothing, and you not give him those things which are needed? Show me your faith by your words, and I will show you my faith by my actions, because faith without works is dead, being alone." So those are the commands that I'm going to give you. So if you have something other than that in mind, that's fine. We can save that for a religious discussion tonight. What we really want to talk about is what's going to keep you alive in a post-apocalyptic world. What's going to show other people that they have to sacrifice something in order to keep you alive, that you are of value to them. I like that, Bob. I can definitely admit that bread is not easy. Growing, being a gardener, knowing how to grow things, being a skilled hunter or a fisherman. When I had my Facebook account, before I got kicked off of Facebook, back 3 years ago, I had a prepper channel on Facebook, and I asked a question once, and so the discussion was about knives. Of course, at this time, you had all the SEs, and you had the Becker BK2, BK7, BK9. You had all these great knives. You had all of the great bushcrafting knives and everything else. And at that time, Schrade was still Schrade before it got bought out by Smith & Wesson. And so I asked a question on the Facebook page. Which survival knife is the best knife to fillet a fish? And I let the argument go on for 3 days. And I'm sorry, the question I asked, that's wrong. The question I asked was, which is the best survival knife to scale a trout? And let the argument go on for 3 days before I told people you don't scale trout. So all those people who answered obviously did not know how to fish and did not know what they would do with the fish when they caught it. The same thing if you have hunting skills. How do you field dress a kill? How do you butcher a kill? So all those things are going to become important, and that's those things that you're going to have to kind of announce to the other people in the group or in your survival area that they're going to make you a valuable person to them. Trapping, foraging, all those other kinds of skills. So here we go, and that's exactly it. Yes, Little Lone Prepper talks about edible and medicinal plants. So and things that you can use those for, how to make tinctures, how to make salves. Natural homeopathic medicine is going to become extremely important. If I were a person, I sold young living, what do they call them? Essential oils for about 2 or 3 years. I tell you what, there are people who really, really know that stuff. I just kind of dabbled in it. I can talk about it a little bit, but there are people who really know that stuff. And homeopathic medicine is going to be extremely critical, especially when we run out of modern medicine. So, having some homeopathic skills, chiropractor, um, a good massage therapist who can relieve all of our muscles, because a lot of people are going to be working a lot harder than they have prior to uh, SHTF. Knowing sanitation, how to dispose of body waste, how to dispose of bodies, how to dispose of trash safely. Water purification, how to make sure that you have potable water for the entire group. Those are all going to be skills that I think are going to be marketable for your salvation. Now, the problem is, some of those, like making water potable, after about 3 or 4 days, somebody's going to be watching you and they'll learn everything you know. So you got to have another skill behind that. So you might want to have a repertoire of skills that you can sell to the others, making you valuable. There's another theory here. Let me get through the comments real quick. I want to give you another theory that. So Sandy says that her husband is learning to bake bread in a cast iron skillet. Absolutely. So there's something called pan bread, and I've been looking at it. I'm going to try some here in the near future. Basically, you're making a regular bread, you're kneading it, you're letting it rise through the first rise, letting it go down, kneading it a second time, letting it go through a second rise, putting it in a cast iron skillet, basically frying it on one side for like 10, 15 minutes, then you flip it over. And now some of the videos I've been watching as well have where you can do that same thing, where you take half of your dough and put it in the pan, then put a filling. So you can make it into something like a Scotch pie or, a meat pie or something like that. Put that layer on, then take the other half of the dough and then lay it on top, so that now you've got basically a sandwich in your cast iron skillet. And then when that's halfway done, you flip it over. So, there are things like that. So Sandy, you are very, very lucky. I'm glad that he is wanting to learn that. Absolutely, Happy Hickman. So you've got to constantly be learning and adding things, adding to your repertoire of skills, knowledge, and ability. Yeah, cats and prepping. So I would say pick something that really interests you, and that you can really get into and become totally engulfed with, and get a couple books. I will tell you, in my opinion, homeopathic medicine is going to be extremely important. I wish I knew more about it. Reflexology, herbs, herbal medicines, tinctures, essential oils, and things like that. Aromatherapy. I think all of that's going to become extremely important. So I wish I could learn that. I'm focusing right now on trying to get a little bit better prepared as far as first aid and medical knowledge. I have another friend, David Lynn, Pepper Principal. He's going to be coming on, and his specialty is solar. And he's also dabbling into chickens. So we're going to be talking about solar with him. And, there are other people around who have great expertise, and we need to get them on and interview them as well. Ingrid, you are so lucky. You can come join my group any day. So just out of curiosity, with there's two different things. Ingrid is typically Germanic, and Musali sounds Italian. So can I guess that you're probably English and Italian as far as two languages? I got to tell you another story. When I retired from the Army, there was an ad in the paper that the Texas Department of Health was looking for an HR director, and it says must be bilingual. So I went and applied for the job, and when I got to the job, they started interviewing me in Spanish. Now I can speak Spanish. I'm not fluent in medical terminology and stuff like that, but growing up on the border and 2 years of it in high school, I could speak it pretty well. And so the entire interview they were trying to do in Spanish. And I said, I'm sorry, guys, I really don't feel comfortable doing this in Spanish. They said, well, you have to be bilingual. I said, I'm multilingual. I can speak more than just English. I can speak English, Russian, Indonesian, Malaysian, German, and I can understand Polish, and I can read and write Korean. So I'm more than bilingual. And they said, oh, well, we meant bilingual Spanish and English. I said, you didn't say that. That bilingual means can mean something other than just Spanish English. Canning, another great skill. Absolutely. And one that I think most of us, and I throw myself in that group, are extremely afraid of. Anytime you start talking about putting stuff under pressure and the possibility of it exploding, I get scared. So yeah, I tell you what, that's a very valuable skill that I would be happy to have in my group. Um, oh wow, I did not know that. Little on Prepper, we'll have to get you on and talk about that. There you go. That's a fantastic one, a mechanic. Another fantastic one would be a handyman. Knowing how to repair homes, how to repair door sills. I just had to replace a doorknob on the back door of my house today. When I turned the knob, the little striker would not go back out to engage in the striker plate. And so regardless of how you turn the knob, the door was open. You couldn't lock it. So I had to go replace that today and do that. So I will tell you, there's an awful lot of people who don't know how to do that. There's an awful lot of people who don't understand electricity, who don't understand plumbing, who don't understand simple woodworking or caulking, those types of things. Absolutely. Essential skill. Mechanical skills are going to be very critical. A blacksmith is going to be extremely critical because all the things that we have manufactured for us now in factories, we're going to have to maintain or make ourselves. You want to know some other ones? Horsemanship. Do you know how to handle a horse? Can you saddle a horse? Can you put a bridle on a horse so that you can turn it into turn a draft horse into an animal of burden so that you can pull a plow or a wagon or anything like that? Leather working, making saddles, making the tack for a beast of burden. Wheel making for the wagons is going to become critical again, as it was 150 years ago. Those are all going to become important skills at some point here in the near future. Tracy says no scale trout. That's absolutely correct. Yes, I believe they will. And I think that people are going to probably totally deplete livestock, and I don't know about fish. They may do that. One of the things, so I talked to a friend, and he was talking about he was going to hunt and fish to provide for his family. This was quite a while ago, probably about 10 years ago. And I said, okay, let's do a couple things. Number one, dove season here in Texas is 3 weeks in the spring and 3 weeks in the fall. Okay, when the dove are migrating. A meal for me is 3 dove. Okay. So let's assume you have a family of 4 and you're going to feed 3 doves per family member for 1 meal. That's 12 doves. Now let's assume you're a perfect shot with a shotgun. You hit a dove every time you pull the trigger. So you got to have 12 rounds to eat 1 meal. Now you're going to take those 12 rounds for 21 days. Now you're what? Up to, 150 rounds that you got to spend to live for 2 weeks. So how many shotgun rounds is it going to take to feed your family over the course of a year? Same thing with fishing. So one of my best handyman that I really like, Dave, he's a professional bass fisherman. He spends 12 hours out on a boat in the middle of a lake every day in the summer in bass competition, trying to catch 5 good bass. Okay. 12, 14 hours for 5 bass, that's enough to feed your family 1 meal. So fishing and hunting is not going to be as easy as most people think it is going to be. Hello, East Tennessee Preparedness. Welcome. I am still learning how to garden. I am a total failure as far as gardening. This is the 3rd year in a row that my blueberry bushes have died. I'm making sure that they've got good acidic soil. I think it's the Texas heat. Just everything outside is just burning up. I've got 5 tomato plants that produced really well up until we stopped getting rain, and we started getting temperatures consecutive over days over 104. So my tomatoes did fairly well for a month or 2. My bell peppers are doing okay. Let me see. My strawberries are doing fantastic, but you can't live on strawberries. So that's about it. My potatoes wilted. So and of course my lettuce and cabbage. My first year I tried those. I found out you don't do those in the winter. You do those in the fall. Uh, Lettuce and cabbage are more cold weather than hot weather. So I'm learning those things. I'm creating a binder of when I do what, and making sure that I watch things so that I can learn how to garden. Um, I just had some snacks before we started, Bob. So uh, yeah, I hope so. I'm a failure at that too, but I wish I could. Let's see here. Um, so Sandy, the thing is, you can either be a uh, jack of all trades or a master of one or two. Everybody is a jack of all trades, or at least they think they are. Okay, so here's an example. There are a lot of things out there and this is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay, so Dunning-Kruger put out a paper back in the early 90s when it was a paper. And basically what they found out was people think that they are experts at things that they have the least knowledge about. And the things that you have the most knowledge about, you think you are insufficiently skilled at because you know the subject and you know how much more there is to learn. So you know your shortcomings. So therefore, the things you're really good at, we typically say we suck at. And the things that we really suck at, we think, oh, I'm okay. I'm good at that. We're good to go. For example, shooting. How many people go out and practice shooting on a regular basis? How many practice it under a stressful condition? How many done it under low light conditions? We had to field strip and reassemble our M16 in less than a minute, totally blindfolded. So we had to be able to do that in a blackout condition in the military. So, there are things that we think we can do right now that when we get put to the test, we might not be able to do. So my suggestion as you is find something that really strikes your interest, something you can get totally absolved into. And that might be the thing that you want to do. Sean, I was watching a guy, I forget his name, Steve. His name is Steve. I forget his channel. And I think it's Steve's No Need Bread. But yeah, and that's exactly what he said. It's a fantastic channel here on YouTube. He's out of California. And basically, he's a blonde guy with glasses. But anyhow, basically what he says is you don't need any bread as long as you let it sit and rise for 24 hours. So yeah, you are exactly right. That's exactly what he said. And so I wholeheartedly agree with that. Oh, wow. Well, that's fantastic. From Bavaria, I hope, Bayern. My family is originally from Horgau, Kreis Auerbach, which is just a little bit west of Augsburg. So that's where my family comes from. As a matter of fact, I got into a little bit of trouble because I was stationed at Field Station Augsburg, and I had a great great aunt and uncle who wanted to come pick me up at the Kaserne on a regular basis and take me around and show me all of Germany. But because of my security clearance, that's called close and continuous contact with a foreign national, and so the military kind of frowned upon that I was having too much to do with my relatives, and so they were a little bit concerned about that. But anyhow, love Bayern, absolutely love it. Well, and I was stationed up at Grenzeübergang Alpha as well, so I love that area. That was a gorgeous area up by the Nordsee. That was Helmstedt. And let me see. Absolutely fantastic skills. Seamstress, any kind of clothing repair. Another good one is going to be shoe repair, boot repair, those kinds of things. Absolutely phenomenal. That would be something that's going to be of value to you. East Tennessee Preparedness kind of agrees with me. They're scared of canning. Let me see if I can get this to look at Sue Me. Oh, Sandy, that's fantastic. Yeah, I haven't tried. I haven't done it. My canning, I think I showed you, is I have a pressure pump, and so I'll use the canning jar. I'll poke a hole in the lid, and then I have this pressure pump, kind of like a bicycle pump, and only it works the opposite. So as you push down, it sucks air out, and then it has a little rubber flap that seals on top of it, so that you're evacuating the air, and that's what pressure seals it. So that's my experimentation. I'm afraid to try that with meat, however. So I'm sure you do that under heat pressure, which would scare the living daylights out of me. Um, Canning, dehydrating, yes, absolutely valuable. Healthcare and first aid, uh, which is all you need, really. Um, as far as I'm concerned, if I have a physician or a nurse, uh, a and here's something I learned when I was in the healthcare industry. Uh, if I had a pharmacist, pharmacists are very knowledgeable about how to treat diseases as well. And so one of the things I found out when I was in healthcare was there's this dichotomy, and physicians spend 90% of their time on focusing on identifying, diagnosing a disease, and about 10% of their time in finding a solution, the medication to fix that disease. Whereas pharmacists are the opposite. They spend 10% of their time learning about the disease and 90% about how to cure it, which medicines are the best and which ones have the best contraindications and everything else. So the question that has been around since time immemorial here in the US is, should we not have physicians do the diagnosing and then pharmacists doing the prescribing? Uh, just food for thought. But anyhow, so I would say that even a pharmacist falls into that physician status as far as I am concerned. Um, Absolutely valuable skill. Absolutely valuable skill. Great going for you, Muskogoma. Um, Gardening. Come on down here, Sean, and teach me. Uh, wow, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Shoeing horses. That's going to be a very critical skill. When we lose automobiles, if the EMP or CME takes away the ability to run our automobiles, we're going to have to go back to horses. And those are going to be extremely valuable. So, we don't have the number of horses that we did back in the 1800s, 1900s. And so that's going to be, critical that we have people who know how to, number one, breed and raise those horses and train those horses, but also how to maintain their health. So a veterinarian, a horseshoer, a tack leather person, those kinds of things are going to be extremely critical skills. Hello, who's your prepping mom nurse? Welcome. Um, so Bob, that's a fantastic thing that you point out. What I have is what's called a cast net. So basically, it's got weights around the outside of it. When you hear, typically, if we go back to the Dead Sea, if we go back to um, the Sea of Galilee, when you talk about fishing back then, that's how they fished. So the vast majority of people who fished for a living, and even if you look at the giant trawlers we have today who go out into the ocean and fish, they're going to use nets. So the Native Americans had basically fish traps. So they would take stakes and drive them into the ground in a riverbed, and with the current pointing in its typical direction. So it's kind of like a Coke bottle effect. So you got one way in, and then when you get in, there's plenty of room, and they just can't figure the way back out. So that's another one of those things, like a good cast net. So yeah, you're on the right track. I wholeheartedly agree. Um, so and that's so same thing here. I'm not the uh, healthiest guy around. I'm not going to do another 17-minute 2 miles in my combat boots ever again. I probably will not be able to do another 60 push-ups in 2 minutes or 64 sit-ups in 2 minutes again. And I have no intentions of doing that. Those are way behind me in the past. And, so now I have to find what are the other things I can do that are going to make me valuable to the group. I can stand guard. Okay. I know radio. I know first aid. I know how to bake. Those type of things are going to be what adds value, how I'm going to try to sell myself. Yeah, I can't walk, but you know what? If you want somebody who's going to be able to sit here between 12 and 2 a.m. and stay awake and knows what to listen for and knows how to look for things that need to be looked for, I'm your guy. Okay. So I can build my value that way as well. Okay. Oh, Sandy, you make me so jealous. Well, let me tell you something. I've learned a lot of hard lessons. Who's your prepping nurse? So KP Heathen, so here's Lee's solution. I'm not going to say that it's the best one for you. I'm just saying this is, I knocked my mic off. I'm just going to say this is the solution that I've come to. We have two get home bags as well, or bug out bags. And so what I've done is I realize I can't carry them. Helen can't carry hers. So I bought 2-wheel dollies, and I've got my bug out bags strapped to the dollies. If we have to evacuate on foot, all we have to do is pull those dollies. Another one you can do is Academy, Sam's, Costco, other places have these really fantastic heavy duty 4-wheel wagons, garden wagons or weight wagons, whatever you want to call them. That would do as well. Just pull it. You don't always have to wear it. You can pull it. And remember, the Native Americans used travois. And so a travois is basically a stake that was tied to each side of a horse, and it came back, and then they put a lattice across it. And so the back of it was just 2 sticks sticking in the ground, digging a furrow as they went. And then they put everything weight on top of that. So it's basically the same idea as a 2-wheel dolly. You're pulling all that weight behind you instead of on your actual back. So that's an idea that you might want to consider. Wow, that would be a fantastic one. Absolutely, Little Owns Pepper. Great one. Candle making, that's another good one there, Triple G Farms. Absolutely. Leather goods, meats, eggs, produce. I think you've got another really great idea. If you go to a farmer's market, look around at what they're selling, and chances are those are the skills, knowledges, and abilities that you can use in a post-apocalyptic world. Candle making, soap making, making jerky or biltong, drying fish, salting and drying meat, all those different types of things you're typically going to see at a farmer's market, exactly what you want to do. So I would recommend, and there's even people there who sell, I go to 3 farmers markets every Saturday morning. So on Saturday mornings, I go to the LDS Provident Living Store, I go to Academy, and I go to 3 farmers markets. I'm getting ready to do a breakfast from 8 to 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings, just to get people in together to start talking about preparedness and see if I can't get that going. But the farmers market's absolutely great idea, Triple G. I would love to do that. Let me tell you something. We just did. I used my can cooker. For those of you who don't know, you go to cancooker.com. Great piece of gear. It's basically an over-the-fire version of an Instant Pot. Okay, so it does have a pressure release on the inside. So we pressure canned, or we can cooked shrimp yesterday. So in the Can Cooker cookbook, it had shrimp and sausage. So we put in 2 pounds of shrimp. We put in some bratwurst, and then we put in corn and potatoes and onions. I don't know why I'm thinking. Ingrid's got me thinking in German. I'm thinking Zwiebeln, Kartoffeln, and bratwurst, but anyhow. And then we took some Cajun seasoning and threw that in there. A can of beer, and then that's what we used for the steaming effort. And then we put that on the stove, and we had that for 2 meals. So let me tell you something. That is canned bratwurst or anything like that, any kind of sausage like that. It's going to be phenomenal. That would be great. That's great. Oh, wow. I lived on Sheridan Caserne. So when I was single, I lived in Building 155 on Sheridan, and then they bussed us out to Gablingen, which is where I worked. And then I was also assigned to the 502nd ASA Battalion for once, and that was Border Site Command. I was actually assigned to Detachment Wobeck up on the east-west German border, just south of Helmstedt, Grenze-Übergang Alpha, crossing point A. So most people don't realize it, but the wall, east-west Germany. So as you moved west to east, we lettered those A, B, C. So checkpoint Alpha was going from West Germany into East Germany. Checkpoint Bravo was going from Potsdam, East Germany, into West Berlin. And then checkpoint Charlie was going from West Berlin into East Berlin. So that was A, B, C, the three checkpoints. Where I was stationed for 3 years was just south of Helmstedt, a little place called Wobeck. If you look it up on the map, you look up the detachment Wobeck, you'll see the Tory Tower, which is the large intercept tower that we had. But anyhow, yeah, I love Sheridan Caserne. Gosh, and I went back there when I was there in the 511th in my battalion. We were stationed at Flat Caserne, and this was in '86. Gosh, Sheridan brought back such great memories. Great memories. So Ingrid, my sister did not speak English until she was 5 years old. Same thing. My dad was in the Army. We were in Kitzingen. And so she did not know English until she was 5. I grew up speaking it, of course, because we had relatives and then being there and all that kinds of stuff. But yeah, I wish I spoke it better. And I still have problems with gender, as far as die, der, and das. So in Russian, it's very easy. If it ends in an O or an E, it's neuter. If it ends in a vowel, a consonant, it's masculine. If it ends in a or ya or a soft sign, it's feminine, with one or two exceptions. So and that same thing with Spanish and Latin and things like that, where you have definitive last letter of the noun or pronoun defines what gender it is. In German, you have to memorize it. They just don't make sense to me. Wow, Sandy, that's great. Shugu is important, extremely important. That would be a highly barterable item. Phylloxerus, that is exactly true. And that's that parable that I gave earlier. I don't have to be an expert runner I don't have to outrun the bull. I only have to outrun anybody else who is slower, so the bull can then target them instead of me. So anything is better than nothing, and I just have to be better than somebody else in order to be valuable. So shugu basically is a foot, primarily used for running shoes. It's a sole repair. You put it on the bottom of your soles or your shoes to repair any damaged areas. Sue me, yes, absolutely. Taking care of livestock is going to be extremely important, especially shoeing and things like that. Yes, quilting is going to be important. Knitting, crocheting, all those are going to be important. That's a skill that I don't think most people have even thought of. I think when people think fishing, they're thinking a bait caster or spin caster or, rod and reel. Most of them don't know how to tie a knot, to tie their whatever on to the line. They don't know the difference between braided line or monofilament line, which one floats, which one sinks. They don't know the weights or anything like that. Don't know how to use it. So they probably aren't not going to be that successful. So if you know how to use a cast net, you are going to be the fisherman who is able to feed the rest of the population. And I think that's going to be extremely valuable. I'm sorry, my prepper journey. Yeah, I don't know. Well, number one, I failed to put up the announcement for what tonight was until I decided on what the subject was going to be. And that was around 10 o'clock this morning. So I hope that wasn't the cause, but I'm glad to have you here now. Um, Thank you, Who's Your Prepping Nurse. I appreciate your kind words. Happy Hickman, thank you. That's very kind of you to say as well. Yes, absolutely. So, and here's another thing that I do. I was doing it for my grandchildren, but now my grandchildren have moved away. So they're on the East Coast now, and I'm in the center of the country in Central Texas. Chances of them being able to use it are slim to none. So I was picking up on a regular basis workbooks and homeschooling books for my grandchildren. So that, when we lose schools and teachers and everything else, we still have to educate our youth. And so having that capability, my wife is a teacher, she's a special ed teacher, which is how she tolerates me. But anyhow, having that capability of being able to educate children is going to be extremely important. How to watch children, how to lead children, how to motivate children, how to discipline children in an effective way. All those are going to become extremely important. So yes, very good observation, Sumi. Thank you. My prepper journey, I will tell you, I will give you a list. We've done a couple book reviews on some fantastic things. I will give you a couple of recommendations of some lists that I found very, very helpful in doing a bug out bag. Part of it's going to be weight restricted because it depends on how much you can carry. I have an I'm Never Coming Home bag. So in that, I have some, what are they called? Anyhow, they're spring-loaded fishing reels. And so what you can do is when you set up camp, you can take these reels, yo-yo reels. And and they come three to when you order them on Amazon, there's 3 to a package. But you set them up in a tree, and then you set your if you, let's say you use a Texas rig and you're going to use a bobber, a weight, and a hook, and you set that up, you put it in the water. Then what happens is once somebody nibbles on that hook and pulls on it, it releases a spring and it automatically springs that wire so that it brings up your line and catches the fish for you. So that way you're catching 3 fish while you're doing something else. Okay, you're not sitting there actively watching your line. And so I have 3 yo-yo reels in my I'm Never Coming Home bag. I would never carry those in my bug out bag. Okay, so 2 different bags, 2 different sizes. Definitely, for sure. So that's why my I'm Never Coming Home bag is in a 4-wheel wagon. My bug out bag is on a 2-wheel dolly. Sandy, you are so wise. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That is so important for Exodus is to know what you have and where it is. I had 3 fantastic honing stones for my knives, and I gave one of them away at the 5,000 subscriber giveaway. I still have one more to give away, but the reason is because I had no idea where I'd put them, and I didn't know if I had one or not, so I couldn't find it. So I ordered another one, lost that one, couldn't find it, ordered another one. Then I inventoried everything in that room, and I found 3 of them. So yes, knowing what you have, where it is critical. And it's going to become more critical as you get to the point where you have so much stuff you don't know where anything is. What a great observation, Bob. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And I'm glad you said that because a lot of people are going to be dependent upon either Excel spreadsheet or Word or some other program like that. Make sure you print it out on a regular basis and make sure you have it in a binder. So that's a great idea for extras. The other thing is, please inventory your bug out bag and put the value you paid for the contents in your inventory. I think I've told you this story before, but in 2015, I just bought a Kia Sportage, and somebody had one of those keys that can open it, and so they broke into my Kia Sportage and they took out my I was using it as a get home bag, but it was a bug out bag that I started back in 1980. So I had been working on it, improving it, upgrading it, everything else since 1980. It got stolen out of the back of my car in 2015. And I am sure that I lost $1,000 or $2,000 worth of value because I didn't have an exact itemized list and value of what was in that bag. And so of course there were other things in there that were controlled, and that required police intervention because they don't like people losing weapons. But anyhow, that's the way it is. So just make sure, do me a favor, on your get home bag, up until the time you need it, make sure you have a good inventory and value of items in it so that if you have to file an insurance claim, you get everything back that you need. So great. You're doing the exact right thing. Shenanigans, welcome. Let me see what else we have here. Weaving, yes. Knitting, sewing, fantastic. Sheep shearing, absolutely. Basket weaving, yep. You are absolutely right there too. Think of the skills that most other people don't have. So what are the skills we had 100, 150 years ago that people don't have today? Cast iron cooking, making wheels for wagons, making a wagon, learning how to run a team of mules, learning how to handle horses, learning how to break horses, learning how to build a saddle, learning how to make boots. All those skills are going to become critical if SHTF is that much of a post-apocalyptic event. We've got 5 minutes left, so let me see what I can do here. So the Gulf of Danzig, now Danzig has changed names and it's now Gdansk. So Danzig was the German name, and after World War II, it was given back to Poland. It's now called Gdansk. But there's all kinds of strange things going on. There's all kinds of strange things going on in the Black Sea. I heard on a different channel just before starting this live this evening that there were Tu-95 Bears that had launched X-101 air-to-surface missiles towards Ukraine. So I'm kind of anxious to find out what's going on there. Has the inevitable started already? We will see. So is that what you're referring to? Because I heard there were some Tu-95s up in that area as well, and even some Tu-135s. What's the Bison? Bear is Tu-95. Bison is Tu-130, 135. I don't know. I heard that the Bison were up in the Baltic area. Yes, how to repair hand tools, how to use hand tools, how to sharpen hand tools. Critical importance. There's a sharpening guy here at this one farmer's market, and he just sits there and sharpens knives all Saturday morning. And he's making a living just off of sharpening knives and garden shears and lawnmower blades and everything else, on Saturday mornings up until 2:00. We can't have any farmers markets after about noon. It starts getting way too hot. It gets up into the low 110s, high hundreds, high 100, 104 to 107s. So it gets unbearable here during the middle of the heat of the day. So our farmers markets have a tendency to start thinning out around noon. So we had Snowmageddon here back in March, I think it was. Maybe it was April, February or March, and we had a lot of damage to the parish. And they called out for volunteers to come, and 2 of us showed up. So here I am, 70 years old with a broken hip, and I'm trimming trees and getting broken branches out so people can make it to Mass without fear of having a broken branch fall down on top of them in the parking lot. And we did 2 days worth of work like that, just doing nothing but trimming trees, breaking up the branches, cutting them down, putting them in a trailer, and then hauling them off and disposing of them. And after 2 days of that, boy, let me tell you what, I went through some Bengay and some pain pills. And I was talking to Father High, and he said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I can tell you one thing. For a 70-year-old man, trimming trees and hauling away debris is not my calling. So that's not what God's calling me to do here at this parish, and it probably won't happen too often again." But I learned my lesson. I was sore for quite a while. Sue me, absolutely. Storytelling, folklore, things like that. The American Native Americans used folklore as an extremely important way of teaching their youth. And then, of course, there was a lot of other natural things that they learned as they were going along as well. Okay, let's see where we are. And maybe we can get out of this under an hour today, huh? No, we're right at an hour. All right. Well, what do you think? Was it worthwhile? So I hope it gives you some things to think about, gives you some things to peruse, gives you some things to pursue. So I just want you to ask the question on a continual basis. What knowledge, what skill, what ability do I have that other people will value that they don't have, that is important enough to keep me alive in a stressful situation? I did want to show you this one diagram. So let me kind of do this for you. I was an HR director at Dell. And so I was trying to get training managers on each shift and for each set of lines. And I got permission to hire 4. So I promoted one, and this other guy came in, and he was a really good trainer, did a really good job. He said, "Why did you promote her instead of me?" And I gave him this explanation. And I said, "Well, let me tell you something. Your productivity, if we put it into a bar graph, is way up here. And so, you have very good productivity, and her productivity is only down here. So she doesn't produce as much as you do." He said, "See, I told you that you should have promoted me and not her." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Every time we have a team meeting, you have something, an objection, you find something wrong, you're griping, you're bitching, you're moaning all the time. So you have what I call a BS factor, a bullshit factor." And now when we look at it on an oscilloscope, when you have radio signals, you have this thing here, and then you're looking for a spike. So you have this, what we call grass, and you're looking for the spike, which is where the signal is. So you can always tell the spike it's higher than the grass. So your BS is what I call grass. So your BS factor is here. Okay. So that's how much pain you cause me as a follower compared to the output that I get. Now, she, on the other hand, has this output and this amount of grass. So what I look at as far as determining value of an individual and who I want to promote is, what is the delta? What's the difference between your productivity versus your bullshit factor? So the greater that delta, the more value you are to me. So if you want to be promoted, you're going to have to do one of two things. You're either going to have to do more work to increase this delta, or you're going to have to mow your grass and get rid of the bullshit. So it's your choice. Which one do you want to do? And I think that's the one thing I want to make sure that you understand when we talk about relative importance and significance of people in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Show your value, don't show your ass. Okay. Be productive, be constructive, be friendly, be assistive, be knowledgeable, be valuable. Don't be a pain in the ass, because pain is going to get resolved one way or another. And usually it's not going to be the way that you want it to be resolved. Okay, so that's my my little take on it, my advice for the evening. I hope you can find a little bit of value in that. So once again, we're going to go to Numbers chapter 6, verses 24, 25 to 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. Please, if you have an idea of another subject that you would like to discuss for next Monday, let me know. I'm still working on trying to get a time set up with Prepper Principal, David Lynn, where we can talk about solar. And so in the meantime, if there's a subject that you would like to either have discussed, or if there's a subject that you feel that you have knowledge that you would like to offer others, send me an email, coldwarprepper@outlook.com. Send me that email. Let me know what you want to talk about, and let's get it done. Let's share your knowledge with other people so that we can give them some value as well. So remember, we're all in this together. We're not loners. We're not lone wolves. We are team members. We're in this together. So please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. Thank you all so much for being here. Do me a favor. Hit like and subscribe if you feel that it's worthwhile. And please be safe. Turn on some of these channels that have got the information that's going on about some of the stuff that's happening in the Baltic, in the Black Sea, other things that are going on. Of course, the things that are going on in Niger. We've also got some things going on down in South America. There's problems again in Argentina. So, be aware of what's going on around the world. And please stay safe. See you tomorrow night if you're here for the Nonfiction Book Club. Take care, everybody. Good night.